close. Webcam, microphone, up close.
At the age of 19 in 1962, she was a...
But I have the files. I read this stuff at the National Archives, and I read these other things. I said to myself, how can that be possible? The brain, pistols and fondle slab of choice, I don't know when that was, doesn't really matter. Internet, professional wrestlers, and not Jesse Ventura style. It doesn't matter where the information comes from as long as it's real. It's hard to get real information, because seriously, they don't want you to just read two sources whenever I try to prove out one. It's not. If you expect your government to tell you the truth, you're going to sadly disappoint another one of these things.
Dear Lord, what a dirty old man, huh?
Really? Can't be serious. Is this really how you want things to be? Come on. More hooker, eruptions? Eruptions, whatever.
Like Dave Powers kind of...
Really?
Allegedly broadcast live from Pima Region 2. Within the borders of the formerly united and currently occupied states of America, we bring you the Ochelli Effect.
I damn sure know I'm an original. We have all these situations. I'd love to know why it takes 50 years, for
That's that.
For a 19-year-old girl to eventually get up to gumption to put these things out.
Oh, good evening. It's the Ochelli Effect. I'm your host, Chuck Ochelli, on UCY.TV radio. We are live. And what an eventful day thus far. What an eventful week thus far. Of course, we could have easily predicted what was going to happen in Ferguson, Missouri, and that's going to be one of my focuses for tonight, that's for sure. Normally, this is the Tuesday night with the Liberty Beacon, and things have gone a little strange. We're going to step outside of the normal format, because generally I have Roger Landry on with me first, and we go through an article of his, and we discuss a topic, and then in the second hour I bring you something else. But no Roger Landry tonight. We're just going to do this a little different. By the way, I have the phone lines open, so once we get on our way into the discussion, you can call in at 718-717-8296 if you feel like adding into the conversation. And in the first hour, instead of Roger Landry, I have with me Dylan Wade. How you doing tonight, Dylan?
Good, Chuck. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm really outside the norm.
Outside the norm. Yeah, well, look, I never wanted to fit in, Dylan. It's not ever been a desire of mine anyway, so here we go.
It's no fun.
Are you sure? Because I've never done it myself, so I don't know how it is to fit in. Maybe you have.
No, not really. I haven't had that either, but it doesn't sound very fun.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't appear that way, that's for sure. Speaking of things that are not very fun, oh boy. And watching the events in Missouri?
I had a live feed as soon as it started.
Oh, you had one of those too, huh?
Yeah. I was waiting for it, so I had my live stream up and ready.
See, this is bad. You're waiting for it. Everybody else was waiting for it. And as I have, mentioned several times over the past couple of weeks, the mainstream has been amping it up, has been getting everybody ready. Get ready for the riots, get ready for the riots, get ready for the riots. And what did we get? Of course we got it. But let me just ask you this. You were waiting for it and you saw it from the beginning. What do you mean by the beginning exactly?
Well, when they start... It was supposed to come out at 8 p.m. Eastern last night. So I was checking from 8 o'clock till the announcement at 9:30.
Okay, so backing it up a little bit, what we're waiting on was the grand jury's decision regarding whether to indict the officer Darren Wilson or not.
Yeah,
right?
I figured they weren't gonna get him like they ended up doing. But I didn't expect all the amp up. They really amped this one up even more than the last one.
Well, okay. Now, what do you mean by the last one? You're talking about the disturbances over the summer regarding the same event?
No, Trayvon.
Oh, okay. Sorry. See, that's the problem. I get lost in all of the different strategic uses of the race card out there. You know, after a while, the deck gets shuffled, and you're not really sure what's being dealt to you from the bottom of the pack anymore. This is the way it goes. So, yeah, sorry. You know what? It completely slipped my mind, the whole Trayvon Martin thing during the time. Of course, over the summer, they kept mentioning it repeatedly because here's another instance of interracial violence. You know, and let's not forget racism. Pretty much.
Have we used that as much as Ebola yet?
Well, he's now. Shh. The Ebola thing has disappeared, Dylan.
It never happened.
You know, I do believe somebody bearing a strange resemblance to myself might have told you that that's exactly what was going to happen regarding the Ebola thing. It's gone.
And I believe somebody who was on that show with you agreed.
Okay. Yeah, you know what? I think you're right also. As I said, I mean, you know, avian flu, swine flu, the flesh-eating disease, all of these other things, all it was.
I do have to admit, I was surprised they didn't take it a little bit further. But I'm sure it'll be back.
Stay tuned, brother. It'll reemerge. There's always a sequel. You know, even a remotely successful film has a sequel. So that's exactly what's going to come out of this.
Even Sharknado got a sequel, and that wasn't even remotely successful.
Dear Lord, Sharknado got a sequel?
Yeah, it came out this year, and it's getting a third.
Oh.
Yeah, except this time it's going to be in Hollywood. Hooray.
You know, and you're still somebody who does, you know, participate in funding some of that mainstream stuff still, huh?
In that sense I am, but...
Well,
what can I say? Everyone has a weakness.
This is true. Are you watching television lately?
No.
Okay, good. Well, listen, that's 1 point in your favor. So now we have you still funding the Hollywood industry a little bit by going and paying those ridiculous prices to sit in those ridiculous theaters that I'm surprised aren't completely out of business yet. But yeah, you're not funding the cable industry or giving them any of your intellectual shelf space, as it were, huh?
No, and even if it's on, it's muted.
That's too bad, because you know what? I was kind of interested to talk to somebody about Gotham.
I have watched that online.
Okay. See, me too. Now, what do you think of that?
It's interesting.
Yeah, I think we have another example of predictive programming. It's going to take a while to dissect that, and I think we might have to sit and do an updated predictive programming on the television industry coming up soon. But let's try and
do a whole show on that.
Oh, absolutely. But let's
2 hours.
No problem. We can definitely devote the time to doing that. Oh, by the way, this Saturday I will actually have a chemtrail show coming up.
Nice. So do I.
It won't be Dane Wigginton, but it will be somebody on chemtrails on Saturday, so stay tuned.
I've got 2 guys coming on for that on Saturday as well.
Well, you do often seem to follow my lead a little bit, Dylan. So,
well,
not surprised.
I've got Jim Lee, and maybe Max Bliss.
Okay, that's interesting. So moving back to the Ferguson thing, let's rewind. Yeah, we did really badly.
We always do.
Unfortunately, right? Let's go to the only thing that I consider even more dumbed down than the Reuters feed. Let's look at
There's something worse?
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it's been worse for a long time, even long before the internet age where everything is online. The USA Today, wonderful publication printed for 5-year-olds to be able to consume. Sorry, what?
I thought we were going with Before It's News.
No. Let's go to USA Today with the big pictures and wonderful, color pullouts, magazines, and all that good stuff in the age of the internet. So they do translate over. Let's take a look at their article. Ferguson, Missouri. And we're just going to do this as a matter of covering the facts and making sure that we get some of this stuff out there, because it is fairly coherently written. Although I'm sure you're going to have something to say about it. Yeah, it has to be. It's written on the level of the old weekly readers that we used to get in school. I don't know if they still make those things anymore, but there used to be this like weekly reading magazine for grammar school age children out there. In order so that they could dumb down the propaganda well enough so that we would be prepared to accept the adult propaganda when we, decided to join the workforce, as it were. So, Ferguson, Missouri, a white police officer will not face charges for fatally shooting an unarmed black teenager in a case that set off violent protests and racial unrest throughout the nation. Again, this is from the USA Today. A St. Louis County grand jury declined to indict Officer Darren Wilson, 28. I like how they got to put his age in there. For firing 6 shots in an August confrontation that killed 18-year-old Michael Brown. St. Louis prosecutor Robert McCullough said Monday night. Crowds of protesters filled streets near the Ferguson police station following the announcement. A police car and stores were set on fire. Other stores were looted. Gunfire was heard and bricks were hurled. Police said they had been fired on and responded with smoke bombs and pepper spray before using tear gas. Okay, protests sprang up in the cities from New York to Los Angeles and remained mostly peaceful. At least half a dozen commercial airline flights into St. Louis were diverted out of concerns about the unrest. The Federal Aviation Administration at 11:15 p.m. Eastern Time said it had restricted flights into and out of Lambert International Airport in St. Louis to provide a safe environment for law enforcement activities. The restriction lifts at 5:15 a.m. Eastern Time. This is obviously from last night. Okay, the grand jury's decision had been long awaited and followed earlier Ferguson rioting that resembled war zone news footage in this predominantly black suburb of St. Louis. In Washington, President Obama appeared before TV cameras. Quote, "We need to accept that this decision was the grand jury's to make," he said in calling for peaceful protests. But Obama said the Ferguson case, quote, "speaks to broader challenges that we still face as a nation," end quote. Oh boy. Prosecutor McCullough made the announcement in an unusual nighttime presentation in a courtroom. He spoke at length about media coverage of the case and what he called the unreliability of eyewitness accounts. He said the grand jury weighed evidence and testimony before concluding there was no probable cause to indict the officer. Quote, "The duty of the grand jury is to separate fact from fiction," end quote, McCullough said. He said prosecuting attorneys presented 5 potential indictments to the grand jury and all were rejected. Quote, "The jury was not inclined to indict on any charges," end quote, Benjamin Crump, an attorney for Brown's family, said after being informed of the decision by authorities. In grand jury testimony released by prosecutors Monday night, Wilson, the officer, described the confrontation and said that Brown refused his instructions to stop talking in the street. He said Brown cursed him, then slammed the officer's car door shut as he was trying to exit his vehicle. He said Brown appeared to be trying, quote, "almost like to intimidate or overpower me," end quote. They scuffled and Brown hit the officer, Wilson testified. Quote, "When I grabbed him, the only way I can describe it is I felt like a 5-year-old holding Hulk Hogan," end quote, Wilson said. He had no taser weapon and felt his mace spray would not work, Wilson said. Quote, "So the only other option I thought I had was my gun," end quote. He drew it, he said, and told Brown to, quote, "get back or I'm going to shoot you," end quote. He said Brown grabbed the gun with his right hand and twisted it, pushing it down into Wilson's hip before the officer fired. Brown's family attorneys received a call from McCullough shortly before the announcement that there would be no charges against the officer. Crump took the call and delivered the news to the Brown family in an area hotel. Let's see. I mean, it goes on. Leslie McSpadden Brown's mother cried and shouted when Crump told her there was no indictment and that the prosecutor was willing to meet with the McSpadden began crying and shouting. Her body vibrated with pain as she jumped to her feet. Quote, I do want to meet with him right now, end quote, McSpadden screamed. Quote, what do you mean, no indictment? She then ran out of a hotel room, followed by family members. Brown's family later released a statement saying, quote, we are profoundly disappointed that the killer of our child will not face the consequence of his actions, end quote. They urged others who share their pain to, quote, channel your frustration in ways that will make a positive change. And I'm not going to finish the article, but let's get in the Missouri governor before I stop reading. Missouri Governor Jay Nixon, like that matters in this case, called for calm after calling up National Guard troops to stand by in case of unrest. Speaking before the decision was announced, he urged that, quote, regardless of the decision, people on all sides show tolerance, mutual respect, and restraint, end quote. Crowds gathered around the Ferguson Police Headquarters in anticipation of the announcement at the courtroom in Clayton, Missouri, another St. Louis suburb. The 12-person grand jury had been considering whether probable cause existed to bring charges against Wilson, 28, again mentioning his age. My commentary there. The white officer who fatally shot Brown, an 18-year-old black man, after their August 9th confrontation. The shooting inflamed tensions in a largely minority community patrolled by an overwhelmingly white police force. There you go. Wow and wow. Okay. Let's see. I will just continue a little more here because I was scanning the article just for a second. Brown's lifeless and bleeding body lay for more than 4 hours in a Ferguson residential street after the shooting, prompting dismay and anger as the crowd gathered.
Hey,
Protests
Chuck,
turned... I saw your message. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Protests turned into rioting and looting the following night, and police responded with armored vehicles and tear gas, triggering a nationwide debate over police tactics. This is, of course, where, and that's my commentary, this is, of course, where I noted that they started using the term militarized police and all that. Okay, the grand jury, including 9 whites and 3 African Americans, had been meeting in secret for months, hearing evidence and weighing whether Wilson should face charges that could have ranged from involuntary manslaughter to murder. Okay, I'm going to put this down for a minute because that's about as far as I can really stomach going. How's your mic issues now, Dylan? All right, I guess you're having mic issues still. You let me know when you get back to it. Anyway, yeah, so this gives you a pretty good overview of what's actually happened in the case. This gives you an idea of, what it is we were treated to if you were bothering to pay attention to the feeds as they went last night. Watching the burning buildings, the looting, and all that other good stuff. And it does absolutely remind me of the LA riots, which Dylan is too young to remember. It reminds me of that particular situation, which for those of you who can't seem to recall or haven't looked it up before, this is following the non-indictment of officers again regarding the beating, which was filmed of Rodney King and all that, and this set off a nationwide debate that resounded for years. I do believe that we're looking at another one of these situations where there will be a national discourse on the subject for quite a long time to come. However, the one thing that does disturb me greatly is the continuous need to seize upon the politics of race, the constant need to discard oldest of old sort of in the populace. Okay. It's one of those things that is very conveniently used, and I say this again, to subdivide the people the way that they have, to sort of enhance, to accent the differences that we have with one another, whether they be in our appearance, our ethnic background, our religious beliefs, our political stances, anything whatsoever that can be utilized to subdivide the people has been utilized. And of course, this is one of the oldest techniques is, you humans are definitely different than these other humans, and let's make sure that we keep those fences up. Man, oh man. It's one of those things that I just cannot wrap my mind around anymore. I'm watching the younger generation, and this is why I wanted to have Dylan on for this discussion. By the way, anybody who wants to add in or make a statement about this or say something regarding it, ask a question, drop something in, go right ahead. 718-717-8296. If you have me on your Skype list, I will add you straight into the conversation as well. I find it extremely disheartening that we are still confronted by this kind of nonsense. It is a reality that there are individuals who comport themselves in such a way that it falls right in line with the very old racial stereotypes, that it falls right into line with the strategy of divide and conquer, which is utilized to confound the masses so that there never is a great singular mass. Possibly see this in all areas of society. Convenient is what it is for those who wish to keep us under their thumb, to make sure that the differences are always mentioned, or always accented, or always a point of contention. And let's see now if I can get my cursor to work. 727, I've added you into the conversation.
Okay.
So, anything you want to say about this particular subject, or anything else? Go right ahead.
Yeah, I just thought that, like I guess how many years have the humans been around anyway?
Well, it depends on who you talk to, I guess.
I know, like, if they're religious or if you believe in... Well, I don't know if people came from God or if they evolved yet, so...
Well, and you know what? If you listen, there used to be these people called 5%ers who used to explain to me that white people were actually created in a mountain by a mad scientist named Yakub, who used the DNA of the devil to create us. So it depends on your religious view, it depends on your moral view, and your ability to understand science.
Yeah.
But is this my friend who asks for Dane Wigginton all the time?
That like the groups of people, they just they stayed on their own pieces of territory, like the Europeans, and then all the other people, and then they started breeding too much, and then the populations grew, and then the breeds intermixed and stuff.
Yeah, I know what you're getting at is, there have been people that, when I was way younger, told me that eventually there would be no such thing as, white people, brown people, and black people, that eventually we'd all be kind of one color and interbred and everything else. And of course, people talk about historically how we were geographically separated and thusly racially separated.
Yeah. I think only in the past, couple hundred years or something. Now it's just like how the machine industry started 100 years ago. Now it's like with the race thing too.
Well, yeah, the ability to travel intercontinentally, the ability to travel around the world, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's one argument, but an earlier example of the melting pot kind of philosophical way to look at a society is Sicily. To be honest with you, and I bring it up because I'm half Sicilian. But
hey, you know what? I'm half Sicilian too.
There you go. Then you know, if you know anything about your heritage, that
I don't really know. I know kind of a little bit about it, but I don't know any of the relatives I might have came from.
that's cool. But I'll tell you, if you just know a general sort of history of that island, that small island there that almost looks like the big Italian Buddha's kicking it in the ass. The thing about it is that culturally and from a genetic standpoint, we are like the original mutt kind of people.
We're mixed from all different races, like, weren't we?
Well, yeah, exactly. Because a lot of people that went to go and invade the Roman Empire landed on Sicily first. So you have everything from the whitest of the white Germanic type tribes, to what we now call English people, to Arabs, and on into different people from the continent of Africa, and et cetera, at some point or another intermingling into that melting pot. And I hold up the air quotes because I never liked the melting pot concept. But the truth is that racially, we're probably the most mixed human beings on the planet. And way previous to the New World being what it was, before the indigenous people got wiped out by white guys carrying smallpox blankets and stuff. Long before that, Sicily was like the original archetype for what racially is becoming our country now.
Oh, didn't they send like slaves and stuff to Sicily, like prisoners and stuff, like from Italy, because like Italy would send them on a boat to Sicily as like a prison island, or just drop them off there, maybe.
Well, it wasn't really a prison island, but it was a distance that people were sent from the Roman Empire proper, to Sicily for different reasons. But individuals who were conscripts, like people point to the invasion of Hannibal into the Roman Empire, and it used to be.
I'm not going this deep into all this stuff, but I'm just trying to talk in general. I don't want to go into a history conversation because everybody that listens is going to fall asleep.
You know what? You're very right. But generally speaking, it works like this. The Roman Empire was a big jewel, and a lot of people tried to attack it. Everybody from the Huns to the Asians to the English, right? So as they landed and occupied...
What are you doing now? So what's the strongest empire on Earth right now? The Chinese, I think.
Well, the American empire is the most prodigious when it comes to planting its flag all over the planet. We're in almost every country with a military installation of one kind or another. So really, the American empire is like that.
Stores made in China, then.
Well, because slave labor is much cheaper there. Especially if you go to the Wally Mart. I mean, I think even the vegetables mostly come from China and stuff over there. But what's that?
I hope not.
Yeah, well, some of the food, believe it or not, it does actually come from China, and not just the prepackaged stuff. Some of it does. China, Japan, they got stuff coming from all over the place. As long as they're paying less than dirt for it, Walmart carries it.
Is there radiation in the vegetables in Japan?
Man, Fukushima? I can't see how the entire country is not completely contaminated with radioactivity after Fukushima. There must be
radioactive stuff everywhere now.
I mean, I couldn't say definitively, I haven't checked with the Geiger counter myself, but I got to tell you, I stopped eating anything that resembles seafood at this point because I want no part of it, And when it comes to anything from that part of the world, I really want no part of it anymore either, because anything that's being built over there or whatever else coming out of Japan, I mean, I'm assuming it's not a huge place, it's got contamination.
Yeah. I think everybody's talking about Ferguson. But I watched it for 2 hours last night on CNN. I watched it on InfoWars and everything with the one guy that's always... it's just another distraction. That's all it is. I don't believe... if I had my own radio show, I wouldn't have put 2 cents into that. It's just another blimp in the. It's another blimp. It's another. Like, what's that thing that like checks your heart rate? Like if you're dying in bed and it's hooked up to your heart.
Well, yeah, it's another blip on the screen, is I think what you mean to say.
Or like, what's that thing called though? Like or you could even call it a Geiger counter that tests radiation.
I forget the proper term for it, a tachyometer or whatever else, but one of those heart monitors that beeps along and you hear the constant whistle when it goes flatline, that kind of thing. That's what you're talking about. Yeah, no, I hear you.
This Gigersha thing is just going to blow over, and it's nonsense even spending that much time on it. It's just like the thing that happened out in the desert a couple months ago or whatever. I don't know.
Talking about the Bundy Ranch thing. Yeah, but here's the deal.
This thing's going to blow over, and it's all going to blow over, and it's going to go on to something next, and next, and next, and next, and next.
Well, yeah, but
so
here's...
what's next going to happen? So what are we going to be talking about 2 months from now?
Be the next page in the script, because what happens here is we watch them ramp this up. We watch them predictably program the whole thing, where they told us
someone's sitting there writing it too.
Well, like it's being orchestrated.
A novel or something.
I'm back.
Yeah. What gets frightening is
the whole world's big book, and someone's writing it.
What I was going to say is that after a while you start to realize that the whole thing is actually just a script in somebody's mind. But the reason why I spend any time on it at all is because it's going to have residual effects. And the more that they play these kind of games with the population, the more damage it does. The more that people allow themselves to get hooked into, the emotional sentimentality of what they tell you is the real, crime against people, what they tell you is the real shame of the whole damn thing, is out of control. And this is the only reason why I'm talking about it, is that if it wasn't fed into in the first place, regarding, the separation of these are these humans, and, we have to be different, and we have to be, separated from one another. This is the thing, is that it was all set in motion a very, very long time ago. And one of the oldest things that they seize upon for this kind of action is racism. Okay, but it's played a couple of different ways. I mean, there is real racism out there. There is real prejudice out there regarding all kinds of things. And some of it has now, it's like fanning the flames of something that isn't even burning yet. They get their fans going and then they set the fire, it seems like. And this is what the problem is. If this was a legitimate outburst of revolt, I could understand it. But it's been so orchestrated by the powers that be and helped out by the mainstream media especially. But even in the alternative media, it's been helped out to try to lay the ground before it even came down. They were telling us for the they were telling us for the whole week, it's coming, there's going to be unrest. It's coming, there's going to be unrest. And meanwhile, setting the stage, and I'm very, very happy actually to say that we haven't had violent outbursts all over the country, because there have been protests in a whole lot of other places that haven't gotten violent, that there hasn't been a lot of fires set, there hasn't been a lot of tear gas fired, and this is a good thing. So not everybody got suckered into it. But the sentimentality of those who were close to the situation, who were feeling the heat from that fire, obviously erupted into what it is we're witnessing. And so I'm trying to tell people at the end of the day, the lesson here, even, covering these different things, is unplug yourself from being told what to do. Not only should they be incapable of telling us what to think, or telling us who to love, or telling us what it is we can put in our own bodies, but at the end of the day, we got to figure out how to unplug who it is we're supposed to hate and be against. That's another thing, too, because a lot of people take that stuff for granted, simply because it's always been that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think, for like the human people that, like, we used to live in tribes, like, in kingdoms and stuff, and no one, like, ever thought about, like, worldly, the whole world until, like, maybe, like, 50 years ago or something.
Well, people's interactive concerns have evolved. I mean, the world is smaller in a way because we're able to understand things that are happening, across the planet. A couple of 100 years ago, we would have no idea what happened in Australia until many months later and that kind of stuff. And I see what you're getting at. And you're right, and this is the double-edged sword of the information age where I can instantaneously talk to somebody, in Japan if I want to. I can instantaneously talk to somebody who's on the continent of Africa if I can make the connection. It's got its good and its bad points, and that's for sure. And that's one of those things that I debate sometimes, whether, it's because of the shrinking world, as it were, via technology, that these things have become a greater concern, or if it's simply because, the world is getting sicker, or if it's both, But at the end of the day, here's the deal. We'll always done it, even though we didn't have the ability as the masses to see more than a few feet in front of our faces, because like you said, we were in tribes, small towns, collectives that were fenced in. Yeah.
Well, Chuck.
Yeah.
Some people would argue that the age of the internet has just allowed this stuff to get out more freely. That this stuff may have happened in the past. That's what some people would argue.
Oh, yeah, but that was my point there, is that exactly that these kind of things have always been going on, but the awareness level has changed for the common citizen,
I've actually got, in an hour, I've actually got Crumpton on to talk about that.
Oh, yeah, Daniel Lewis Crumpton, who's been on my show many times, and is always a fascinating guy to talk to. And
I've heard him a lot of times before, if you're talking to me, or are you talking to the other people listening?
Oh, I'm just mentioning in general for yeah.
Oh, okay.
The guy who wrote Then Came the Flood. Interesting guy, philosophically, spiritually, and definitely, I'd like to be able to listen to that. Unfortunately, I'll still be on the air over here.
Right, I thought we were on Liberty Beacon, so I thought your show was only an hour.
Nope, it's a 2-hour, and I'm on UCY tonight. Sorry you didn't hear the beginning.
No, and I forgot it was Tuesday. My week's all screwed up.
Yeah, well, it's been like that for me, too. Yeah.
That's why I like your UCY things, because that's why I always listen to them, because they're 2 hours long, and it's not like you got to race through everything real quick. I mean, I kind of wish they could be like 3 hours or even 4 hours.
Well, you know what? If I had commercials, if I had sponsors, I would definitely seek to expand the length of my show, because I just need little breaks in between. If I had some little breaks in between, and actually I'm working on that now. I have a mixer, but financially I need a few more things hardware wise, and then who knows? Maybe Jules will give me more airtime to ramble and annoy people on UCY. We'll see. I actually started a discussion group on Facebook now, by the way, for those that want to comment and everything else. I no longer want to take the private messages or emails. I'd rather that those of you that have hateful things to say did it publicly. So there's actually the Ochelli Effect radio show discussion group on Facebook, and it's an open group if you want to go on there and let me complain, make suggestions, call me name, whatever it is you want to do. I will not ban or restrict anybody. Go right ahead. Actually, I had somebody already today call me something.
Me, this sounds fun.
I think I did. I had somebody call me one name today, but so far the people that are most nasty to me have been quiet. So where are you at? No more taking the silent Skype messages. No more looking at my emails and not being sure what I should disseminate. No. You have complaints. You have ramblings. Absolutely go join the Facebook group and yell at me there.
Please yell on there. I need entertainment.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot, Dylan. I'm glad you enjoy other people going at me.
Well, you enjoy it too.
Well, yeah, but
We've sat down and had fun with it.
Well, right, and I haven't even actually read any of the stuff that's really bad on the air yet. I'm gonna put together a 2-hour show where I just read the best of the hate mail. I think I'm gonna do that when I hit the anniversary of this show. I think that'll be fun. But you got any other? You're the guy who calls me about Dane Wigginton, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I won't say your name on the air because I don't think you wanted me to say on the air. But you got any other suggestions? I couldn't get in, but I do have a chemtrail guy coming up Saturday.
Okay.
If you're really interested in chemtrails, Chick, do you mind if I promote my next show?
You can do that on your way out the door, Dylan.
Oh, right.
Because I didn't even get to finish talking about the show I have coming up.
Sorry.
Sylvan, it's okay. Sylvan Henry will be on with me on Saturday, and we are going to go over the entire chemtrail subject for 2 hours.
Awesome. You got Sylvan?
Yeah, I got Sylvan coming on. The guy who does Mass Action Demand and is involved in a lot of other forums relating to this. And, of course, had a little private back-and-forth messaging about Dane Wigginton. He respects him and all that kind of good stuff. So I know I've got somebody who's on a similar page at the very least. No, I won't be dealing with somebody who's going to tell me that I'm crazy when I see lines in the sky or anything like that. So I'm pretty happy there. And, of course, thanks to Vince Easley for actually convincing Sylvan to do the show with me. Because although it was Dylan who put me in touch with Sylvan the first time, I couldn't seem to get him to return my messages just like everybody else lately.
Yeah, I can't get him to return mine either.
But he did after Vince to him, so thanks Vince Easley for that. Shout out to you, brother. But anyway, yeah, man, if you got any other suggestions, I'm all ears because I'm looking to make the show a little different. By the way, so.
Yeah, I honestly don't. I'll just listen in, and I don't have much more to say.
That's cool. And look, I appreciate all feedback, whether it's positive, negative, or whatever else. And I am trying to diversify regarding my information. Although here's something that's going to aggravate people. Probably, I am going to do a series on JFK. Either at the very end of the year or at the beginning of the year, because I've already looked into how long it's going to take me to cover the mythology in the case. And I think we're going to need a 2 or 3 part show on JFK mythology alone. Yeah, there's a couple of forums that popped up, and people have invited me to join some of these not exactly public, like very selective forums, where all they do is go over this mythology. So, and they have reminded me of a great many things that I would not have covered otherwise. Of course, you're invited to that show as well, Dylan, because I know that you want me to touch on a couple of subjects.
Yeah, you and I have been trying to get the Myths show going for a while.
We will get it done, and I'm telling you, the plans are going to be laid out in the next week or so.
Awesome.
Chuck, why don't you just write a book or something about everything you know about the JFK? It's probably the best book of all time and be a bestseller.
Well, I don't know if it would be a bestseller, but actually it's funny you say that as well, because I am getting my stuff together, and there will be a book in either 2015 or 2016. So that is coming.
Put a book together, and people read books, and it seems like you know a lot, and just write a book.
Yeah, that's one of the things I'm going to do. I'm not going to put it out on a website and and have it hacked and everything else. I'm going to put it out in book form, finally. And of course, the YouTube channels and all the other stuff that I've done over the years, it's going to be nothing next to this stuff. So when I do actually get a title and exactly what type of distribution is going to happen with it, I'm going to let everybody know. I haven't actually chosen a title for it. I'm thinking about calling it like something like The Blind Leading the Uninformed in the JFK Case or something like that. Because, after all, I am the blind JFK researcher. Looks like I got another call trying to get in. Let's see. Let's try and add everybody in and see what happens. 801, you're on the air. 801. Oh, 801 is gone. Never mind.
I thought for a second it was going to be a telemarketer.
Oh, yeah, I got those earlier today. Got those. But, so, Dylan, you had mic trouble, and I did want to get your thoughts on the Ferguson thing outside of a couple of snide remarks, which we are always good for, but we're 45 minutes deep, and I haven't even gotten to really what you think about what's happening there.
In terms of should they be doing what they're doing? Probably not. Actually, definitely not.
Well, let's qualify they to start. Who's they?
Both.
Both. Well, there's not a both here, Dylan. Now, come on. You got to get a little more discerning than that. You're talking about the legal system, the protesters, the police, the provocateurs. Sorry, go ahead.
Police, provocateurs, protesters.
Well, okay, if you want to narrow it down to 3 categories, yeah, nobody's really behaving all that well, and I said before I'm extremely disgusted with those that are, deciding on this wagon, so to speak, like the living bobblehead himself, CI number 7, the Reverend Al Sharpton. He does look like a bobblehead version of his former self, in my opinion, at this point, and he's making about as much sense. But of course, he's still good for that hucksterism that's famous with the Toronto Brawley case and all of those other wonderful, divisive racial issues.
He's very good at creating them.
Well, he's good at making enough noise when creating them. And, of course, he follows the lead of, earlier, slightly more mild individuals like Jesse Jackson, who's a whole subject in and of himself. But
he's interesting.
Well, yeah, very interesting. And I could go all the way back to him telling tall tales about exactly where he was standing and what he was doing when Dr. King was gunned down. But, I digress. Jesse Jackson, another figure worthy of study in a way, but I almost don't want to pay attention to him. I want to let him fizzle out, like a firework that's been sitting far too long in your trunk and you decide to try and light it off and it doesn't do much but hiss at you. This is the kind of relevance that he has in society today. At one point, presidential candidate, spokesperson for the racial divide in this country, and according to some, the voice of Black America at certain points in time in our history, believe it or not, Jesse Jackson. Man, oh man. But but back to it. What is your viewpoint? Yeah, of course, people are behaving badly. We see that. I mean, that's obvious. I mean, the sun will most likely come up tomorrow too, Dylan. But relatively speaking,
if they spray the skies, the sun won't be seen, because if they spray the skies, you won't see the sun tomorrow.
Yeah, but it'll still come up. You might not be able to see it depending on...
the sun will come up, but yeah, you won't be able to see it. Yeah.
Yep, you got it. But regarding that, I mean, what is your viewpoint about how this is played out? I mean, do you think it's, obviously something happened here. This isn't, total crisis actor theater or anything like that. A kid was killed, and regardless of what his particular crime was or what his particular attitude was or anything else, still not quite worthy of execution to the best of my understanding in our legal system. But either way...
It's just there to distract everything from, real science, like nuclear weapons, chemtrails, all kinds of advanced other weapons.
Yeah, but what I'm
distract the dumb people.
No, I hear you, but what I'm wondering is that, Dylan is younger, he's 16. I'm wondering if among his peers, the Ferguson case is being discussed, the politics of race, are they being discussed? I mean, is this a big topic among, your peers?
My history teacher mentioned it, and one of the kids in the class said, "I'm ready to go down there and fight."
Really? So we're already down to that sort of level of irresponsible stupidity.
Yep. And that was the entire class, just about.
Is that the consensus that you see around you? I mean, among your peers?
Just about, yeah.
See, I find that extremely sad because one of the best points about your generation or the post X generations that I've seen is that at the very least the politics of race, I thought, were not something that the controllers of the information stream could seize upon so easily with people your age. But I guess I'm wrong again, huh?
It's not easy, but when it's played, when you hear something over and over, it starts to mold into your mind, even if it's subconsciously.
So you think partition, they've kind of forced this into the psychology of your peers?
Yeah, I really do.
Well, can I say one thing?
Of course.
I'm 29 years old.
Right.
I was 18. I dropped out of high school, but I made it there 18 years. I was in 12th grade. And I know everything in school. They don't teach you anything about current news, and it's all brainwash crap. So that's all I'd say about that.
Yeah, but generally stuff does come up, even as, you know, an aside or in discussions in the cafeteria or whatever else. If they...
And now I'm so scared because now the kids these days are, like the younger ones, are completely brainwashed. I think they're all zombies or something now. It's really scary.
Don't discount all of us.
Not everybody, but most.
Well, that could be said about the general populace.
80,000 people, zombies, come into your house to get a can of beans. It'll be a different story.
But that can be said about everybody.
Yeah, that was my point. Most of the general society around us are pretty much in that condition. But it seemed to me as though, the younger generations were at least evolved enough emotionally to not be cowed into following, over the cliffs of the racial divide the way that previous generations were. It seemed to me as though sentiment... Go ahead.
Don't get me wrong. It's not a huge majority. I'd say it's like 70-30.
Well, that's a whole lot better than any election we've had or selection, that we've had in recent years, right?
Yeah, I think 70-30 is the ratio in how this is looking for for the general consensus in my. Amongst my peers.
Well, if 7 out of 10 monkeys are getting, intellectual suicide, pretty good. That's a pretty good percentage there for the program, and seems to be fairly effective. If that's what you're telling me, you see.
Yeah, but if 3 out of 10 are, I think 3 out of 10 is a lot better than previous.
No, there was always a rebellious, vein of individuals in the general body of the intellectual world. Even the previous generations. I mean, hell, I was more of a contrarian when I was younger than anything else. Big shocker, right? I definitely didn't want to believe in the system. I didn't want to embrace it. I mean, this is why I was a heavy metal artist, a punk artist. This is why I musically did what I did, and thought that I had been fairly rebellious from a societal standpoint and a political standpoint and everything else. Of course, I didn't realize that the whole game was rigged and that the two sides really weren't anything more than one side. But hey, look, we all live and learn. But the thing is, I'm just thinking that in your generation, at the very least, the divisiveness of racial politics was something that couldn't be easily seized upon. And unfortunately, you're telling me a very disappointing kind of thing here regarding your peers. Yeah.
I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news.
No, not a problem.
I hate being the bearer of bad news, but I think
Hey, how about this one? Can I talk for a minute? How about if you're a white person walking down the inner city of Chicago, you're going to be real scared.
Hey, John.
Well, yeah, but if you're in an inner city anywhere, and I'll tell you what,
it's like with Alex Jones. Alex Jones talks, and you know what? I do listen to him. And he does have a lot of shit to say, man, and I do listen to it. And it's real. It's a real game. But Alex Jones talks all this game, but he won't talk. He won't walk by himself in the inner city of Chicago, will he? He ain't never done that with a camera on his own. Walk in the worst neighborhood of Chicago. Or no,
Nope.
How about Detroit? Detroit's the worst because there is no law enforcement.
To be completely fair, I don't think anyone would do that unless they were an idiot.
Go to Detroit, and when you call the police, they don't respond to certain calls.
But look,
They don't respond at all.
Detroit.
How much land is out there? Thousands of miles. You can disappear. They can bury you anywhere.
It's not fair to bring Detroit into the conversation. I mean, that's a demilitarized zone, brother. I mean, it doesn't matter what color you are either. It doesn't matter what color you are there. And but I say again, if you go to other cities and other parts of the world, certain inner city areas, you can be black and be very afraid of the people that are less darker a shade than yourself, because it's a condition of the inner cities. So
you can be any shade. You can be any shade and walk into a city. If they don't know you, they're gonna attack you.
Yeah, to some degree, but generally speaking, I mean, you blend in most places. I mean, a lot of people up down the East Coast are fearful of New York City. I lived there. I was never in fear at any point in time. Over concerns like this, I was never particularly worried about the individuals around me. Occasionally, I'd be worried about one particular guy or something like that, but these situations came up as they could anywhere. But back to the racial politics.
Did I say anything wrong? Did I say something wrong? I don't know if I did or not. I don't know if I did or not, but I think I probably did.
Why do you say that?
No, did I say anything that's probably not correct?
Well, if you're looking for me to figure out what's politically correct, you're looking to the wrong guy.
I'm not a very good person to help with that either.
Yeah, I don't know how to gauge that stuff too well because I don't pay attention to that. I think that's part of what's caused serious dishonesty to rise up, in public discourse anyway.
What does correctness mean anyway?
Well, it's a generalized sort of term, which is usually used for people that are being insensitive to one race or another, using inflammatory language that is deemed to be offensive for one reason or another. All that kind of good stuff. Personally,
so when I call up this show, should I be politically incorrect? No, or politically incorrect or correct?
Well, my personal view is say what you want to say as long as we're not talking anything, inciting violence or we're not making
violence at all.
No, as long as we're not doing that or making libelous statements, I wouldn't stop you from saying anything.
Okay.
It's fine by me.
I'll just listen in to what you guys have to say from now on.
Don't feel discouraged, man. You can say whatever you want.
I might say one more thing if I find it interesting.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I said when you guys talk, if I find it interesting, I'll talk. So you guys can keep going.
All right. Well, thank you for that. In the next few minutes, I know I'm going to bring in Randy Morgans, who is the host of Off Planet Radio, and we're going to
running out.
Well, no, I got another hour, brother. So the first hour is just about gone, and you're listening to the Ochelli Effect on UCY.TV radio at ucy.tv/TOE, just in case you're catching this further down line. If you're one of a handful of people that listens on the SoundCloud, thanks, by the way. All that good stuff. I do have a SoundCloud account. I keep forgetting to mention that as well, where I post my shows and other people's shows. Actually, I posted a couple of your shows, Dylan. That's The Truth Speaks, which is on various networks. And now, if you want to go ahead and promote that show you're doing on Saturday, go ahead.
Sorry if you can hear them in the background. You can find me on the Liberty Beacon Media Network. Chuck, when is my slot on that? Just so I'm good.
We know you just yet because you were moved out of the Wednesday lot. You'll be coming up again on the Liberty Beacon Radio Network.
You can also find me on People's Internet Radio, Tuesday, 4 to 6. I'll be having Daniel Lewis Crumpton on at the start of the hour, and next week I have Ollie Demigard. You can also find me on CJ Mars Radio. This Saturday I have Jim Lee and possibly Max Bliss coming on to discuss chemtrails and HARP.
Chemtrails and HARP. You know, I've never actually gotten a hold of somebody who is like an expert on HARP, that knows very much more about it than I do. So
Jim Lee's one of the guys who's actually arguing against both the debunkers and the guys promoting the chemtrail conspiracy. Arguing against both.
Really?
So he's interesting. I'll be having him on. You can also find me on YouTube. I promise I'll have some videos up there soon. Once I get my archives, from a few different, from a couple networks, I will start posting en masse. I have to start my show. Thanks for having me on, Chuck.
No problem, Dylan. And listen, have a good night. And everybody just look for The Truth Speaks out there. Somewhere in time, you'll find them on one of the networks. But
just find my YouTube, and I'll have something up there to redirect to all my networks eventually.
There you go. That would be something I would do if I was you, is get yourself a page where you can just give everybody the links, because you got me confused, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm confused too. Join the club. All right. Have a good one, Chuck.
Have a night, Dylan. So there's Dylan Wade, everybody. Still got my caller on the air. I don't know what I should call you though. What should I call you? Because I can't use your name on the air.
No, you can use my first name as Alan.
Okay, Alan. No problem, Alan. So yeah, one conversation you told me to call you the stupid drunk guy. So
yeah. You remembered that, didn't you?
I believe it or not, I remember everything that's said to me in one way or another.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't remember nothing from usually 3 or 4 days ago.
Well, man, overloads of alcohol.
I do, but I don't remember everything.
Well, look, overloads of alcohol do tend to dim the brain cells a little bit. Not necessarily kill them all, but dim them at least. So.
Hey, I got to think about your last caller. What's his name, Dylan?
Dylan, yeah.
I got nothing against him. I don't have nothing against anybody. But can I be honest for a minute?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's probably mean to say, but when I hear his voice, it sounds like I'm about to fall asleep because it's like a really relaxed, slow voice. I'm just explaining what I hear, what I know, what I see, or what I hear.
Yeah, no problem.
It's a really low tone type of voice. And it's like but I like his information.
Yeah, no, I know. And you know what the thing is? I'm not sure if that's personality or if that's by virtue of the fact that he's in a wheelchair and is mostly paralyzed. I'm not sure if his
I'm not talking about anybody's back. He's a good guy.
I didn't say you were talking behind anybody's back. What I was saying is I'm not sure if it's because of the fact that he's got his physical problems or if it's just his personality. But you're right, he does speak monotone and his voice is kind of weak sometimes. He's not, I know his personality is not quite as obnoxious as mine, but then again...
Well, I have a very obnoxious personality when I'm alive.
You don't say. I'm just messing with you, man. Look, and obnoxious and squeaky wheels do get the grease and the attention, don't they?
Yeah.
So, don't sweat it, man. Yeah. Just be yourself, and hell with it.
I can't be any other way.
I hear you. Neither can I, because believe me, if I had a choice, I wouldn't necessarily be me. But anyway. Just don't even sweat it, man. Just be yourself, and F them if they can't take a joke. It's fine. So, let's see if I do believe I have him. Yeah, I do. Just a second. I'll have Randy Morgan's on. And...
well, you guys can talk, and I'll just listen in.
Yep, absolutely.
Or whoever that is. That's all right.
Well, let's see now. I'm not sure if my Skype is going to cooperate with me. I might wind up dropping you.
Okay.
Gee, I love this thing. Let me tell you. Seems to work fine until I try to do something, Gotta love it. So.
Well, I'll let you go, Chuck, and you have a great day.
Listen, I appreciate you calling in, Alan, and now I can call you Alan instead of stupid drunk guy. But I appreciate it.
Stupid retarded drunk guy.
Stupid retarded drunk guy. Cool.
Yeah.
Even better. And you know what? I still use the word retard, even though people tell me I should not, because it just rolls off.
Against. Yeah, I know.
That's not politically correct, Alan.
That word, then you could use mentally challenged or I am challenged. I can't remember numbers or words or nothing.
Well, that's all right, man. You know what? You're probably better off. You know what? I wish I could.
Mentally challenged.
Well,
there's a group, and Chuck, there's a big group of people out there that want to learn, but they can't understand textbook stuff.
Yeah, I know, and I totally understand, and I'm with that, and that's cool. But
if you're connecting with someone, I'll listen on the other side and everything. I'll just listen on the phone, but I just will try to be quiet.
All right, man. Well, listen, I really do appreciate you calling in, and like I said, any suggestions you have or whatever, I'll definitely take them. I'm not going to call you a retard, even though I still do use that word, and I'm definitely not going to call you mentally challenged, because mentally challenged sounds a lot more offensive to me than retard. But I'm in my own world. Don't worry about it, brother. It's fine as long as you can take a joke and I can take a joke, and we can get
listen in.
Cool. And as long as we can get some real information out there, that's what it's all about. So anyway, brother,
I don't know about being boring and hearing Ferguson cases that 10,000 other people are talking about. No one's going to listen to that.
Yep, I hear you, and that's why I do something different all the time. So it always ends up being something or other out of the ordinary. And
but let's say if someone told you that you have 8 months left to live, would your brain be working a little bit harder right now?
Probably not. If somebody told me that there was a definitive answer as to exactly how much life I had left, I'd probably do a lot of crazy things. I probably would, to be honest with you, and you would witness me imploding probably if you could get anywhere near me, and probably that would not be advisable. So that's the way that goes.
Oh.
Anyways.
And you can go on with your show.
All right, thank you, Alan. Appreciate that, and I'm glad I have your permission. You have a good night. Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. Got to have fun with the callers every once in a while. Let's just see if I can get Randy Morgan's in. Try one more time. And he is the host of Off Planet Radio on currently on the Liberty Beacon Radio Network, which is at tlbtowncrier.com. And somebody that I do count among my friends. I think I actually have him now. Randy, how you doing?
Good evening.
Well, how are you, sir? We've had a strange conversation thus far. Roger dropped away for the first hour, did not make it. And Dylan was the only person that answered to come with me. And we discussed Ferguson briefly. And he tried to sort out the many radio projects that he's involved in, and I'm still confused as to where he's actually on and where he's not. But, hey, we at least covered an hour. I don't know what we did, but we covered an hour. Did read an article basically giving a summary of the situation.
gave my viewpoint as to why this is a problem, because people are still seizing upon the old methodology regarding the politics of race, and the very useful divide and conquer strategy regarding, my humans are better than your humans, and these humans are different humans, and subdividing us all over the place so that we can never be unified to actually deal with the singular problems that do affect us all as a species. But enough of my soapbox and enough of my nonsense. Let's get some of your nonsense tonight. How you doing?
I'm not sure how I'm doing. The whole Ferguson thing's. The biggest question you have to ask yourself about this is, what do we ever really know? I mean, what's verifiable in terms of facts? And it looks to me, based on the years that I spent dissecting fake news events and false flags and hybrid events where there was actual carnage on the ground, but it was even hoiked up even bigger, I can say that most of what we know about Ferguson has been planted into our consciousness, and we are the wind under the wings of this fiasco.
You're very, very right. And, of course, one of the incendiary devices utilized to push this whole thing forward has been the predictive programming of the mainstream and those who still adhere to listening to that trumpet call. We heard about this long before. I mean, look, the obvious things, looking at the live streams and the whatever, which are being represented as this is what's happening on the ground and all that stuff. I mean, those are the sort of obvious signs of what's happening and what has occurred because of this situation. But at the same time, the fact that they sort of laid the groundwork well in advance.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
They told us this was coming. They told us it was going to happen. Obviously they knew this over the weekend, probably leaked different things to different people for different reasons. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to one thing, and that is that we're all being played. Well,
look, this is a script that they're running, and the more that you peer beneath the scenes, yes, there are people on the street. There were people on the street back in August. They've had over 90 days now to sow the incendiaries into the ground and basically keep people on a hair trigger. This is the welfare state. This is what they do, because it creates both the need for heightened militarization of police and a stratification of the culture along the lines of race and economics. And all of these serve the New World Order, because all of it points to the fact that we can't control ourselves, we don't control our culture, we are not... Look, even grant that the shooting occurred, grant that the police officer did what he did, I don't know what happened, I wasn't there, I don't trust the media. But it's not an excuse to loot. It's not an excuse to burn, to destroy the property of other people, to basically, like a bunch of feral rats, take out your own environment over a single incident. And this is the character of this particular section of America that's being portrayed. It's what they want the world to see of the U.S. right now, because we're living in a time when, well, we were supposed to have hope. And we have at least a semi-black president, and we've never seen more stratification of race than we've had for the last 6 years under the Obama administration.
Right, the alleged black president, right. And of course, we can stipulate, and we are stipulating only because we're well aware of the disinformation that's generally disseminated here. We are stipulating that there may be legitimate grievances. There may be a legitimate reason to have this outcry, and there may be a real, again, legitimate reason for the visceral reaction among the local individuals, regardless of what we may think of them from the outside. There may be an organic sort of thing that has occurred here, may or may not be. But you notice I got to keep making all these qualifying statements because, as you said to begin with, yeah, we're having to stipulate and having to take for the moment that these things have actually occurred. They seem to, that this is legitimate, a legitimate situation that is erupting out of control because of the emotions, the charged sensibilities regarding the situation. But then again, you're exactly right. This is also useful for portraying us on the world stage as as the bloated and out of control individuals that are fighting amongst ourselves as well.
Well, and I'll go back to earlier history. I'll just look at the events that occurred during the Arab Spring. Internal uprisings are necessary in order to invoke heightened military presence. And inside the United States, this is a touchy issue. All of the alleged circumstances of this, we have to say alleged, we have to stipulate, we have to surmise, we have to guess, because we don't trust our media, and because all of this is, frankly, fabricated on one level or another. The legitimacy, first off, of the police on the ground is totally dubious. The events that occurred, can we document them? No, we can't really document them. We seem to have witnesses, but for the most part, largely unnamed, and accounts that are all over the map. So the narrative is being crafted in the background. And the problem is that the American people's attention is again being directed in the wrong way. No remedy for any injustice occurs inside of a grand jury. It doesn't occur in the streets. It doesn't even occur in the courtrooms right now. Any alleged incidences and grievances are unaddressable under our present system because every level of the American system is corrupt and defiled.
Absolutely, and that reminds me that you're doing a show coming up that'll actually focus on precisely what you were just addressing.
Yeah, this week what we're going to talk about is law, and I'm going to have a very well-known associate of Sheriff Stephen Mack on, and we're going to talk about law and remedy and how we effectively can navigate the corridors of our legal system, because there is a law system. It's not the legal system. The legal system is the counterfeit. That's what the barristers inside the Bar Association have given us. But our founding fathers, as imperfect as they were and as imperfect a document as the original organic Constitution was, gave us the basic structure by which we were to function. And that structure, whether it has been downtrodden by the 14th Amendment or the D.C. Organic Act, the series of events that occurred from the late 1800s through the 1930s, none of that has plowed under the principles of law, which are basically unassailable when they are presented properly to officials in any capacity. So again, we're being redirected and misdirected towards remedies that will not work, and are part of the pulling down of the foundations of what this republic at one time basically was.
Well, right, and being misdirected into fictitious remedies is precisely the strategy, isn't it, after all? Because the more we think that we can redress our grievances through the court system, okay, the more that we invest our time and our energies into that, the less time that we have, the less energy and resource we have to actually address the issues that are actually at hand.
It's that, and Chuck, it's also the fact that we now live in a culture that's so debased. We have people living on the street. We have people whose entire culture is taken from the street. We have the law system that we deserve in America right now, because the law system that we were given, the Republic, was designed for a moral people. And collectively, the underbelly of what you're seeing presented in the media, and especially in reference to Ferguson, whether it's the police officers, the police chief in Ferguson, the looters and rioters and agitators on the street, this is the lowest percentile of our culture. You cannot have a law system that can prevail when people are not moral and responsible. And as a culture, this is debased and it is perverse because it continues to feed off of the very government that's keeping it. The inner city situation, and I'm generalizing grossly here, but stay with me for a minute. Ferguson is emblematic of all of the major cities in the United States who themselves were constructed in the 1960s under the Johnson administration specifically into basically what were at that time projects and ghettos and a place to bring in a lot of a concentration, basically. We're talking about a concentration. Now, this model, by the way, is the model of the New World Order. They want super cities. They want to concentrate people even higher because they then become livestock that are able to be managed. Right now, they're not managing their livestock very well. And if that sounds crude and gross, I'm sorry, but people need to look at the conditions inside the inner city and realize that it is basically a feeding ground for this particular type of behavior. And yes, but go ahead and bring Terry Joyce on, please.
Okay, yeah, and the debased culture is precisely what has been the catalyst for this to occur. The fact that we have the breakdown of morality in general is my main argument for why these things have actually evolved to be what they are. And it is a good place to mark the change regarding the time that the Johnson administration took hold. We had the decapitation of the leadership in the progressive movement from a social standpoint, via the assassinations of people like John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy,
Martin Luther King,
Malcolm X, right? And a little bit later, even the destruction of the Black Panthers, although that makes a lot of other people uncomfortable when I say that. I've got to tell you that that they were not the dangerous militants that they were necessarily made out to be on a ground level. They represented a higher sort of moral standard, actually, in the communities that they concern themselves with. And they were systematically destroyed by COINTELPRO and assassinated.
Most people today have never read Eldridge Cleaver, so they don't actually know what the Panthers were talking about in the 60s. They were aggregated in with a lot of other radical groups of that time, including the Weather Underground, which the Weather Underground, by the way, was headed by a man named Bill Ayers, who is the primary father figure to Barack Hussein Obama. So now you've got real radicals running the power structure, and you've got people disenfranchised from their original roots in the 1960s, when radicalism actually meant change and moving towards a better culture at the time.
Well, that's why I described those assassinations as a decapitation of the movements.
Perfect analogy, Chuck.
Because that's precisely what it did, and it also caused a greater amount of like a defeatist attitude to sort of spread among those communities which were seeking progressive solutions to the social ills that they were confronted by. And it really was demeaning and demoralizing to those movements in general. And a lot of people don't seem to understand that anymore. They think of it as, one particular man got himself assassinated for standing up or speaking out, and that's all there was to it. But they don't realize the greater sort of significance among the individuals who were adhering to those, I say it again, progressive movements. And I've actually brought in Terry Joyce to the discussion. Everybody knows Terry Joyce from the Freedom of Joyce show, blog, and all that kind of stuff. Terry, you're a little noisy there. I'm not sure why.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm having, honestly, I'm with family right now. So I didn't mean to be like too noisy. I was working on putting on mute there for a moment. Yeah, hi. Actually, I'm not at home. I'm in Fresno, California. My mom has had a procedure yesterday, and and stuff. And so we're also doing like our own version of Thanksgiving tonight. We're having tacos. That's my favorite meal.
That's awesome.
That's
so
Hi, Terry.
Right now. But I definitely wanted to join in and talk about a little bit about what was going on with Ferguson, Missouri, with you guys.
Record, I'll be having fried chicken on Thursday. So there you go. That'll be my Thanksgiving with the kids. Will be fried chicken.
You don't have to have turkey, right? I mean,
no.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And Randy said hi to you. I don't know if you heard him there, but he was saying hi to you when you came in.
Hi, Terry.
Hello.
So we're discussing the Ferguson thing, and of course we look back at history and talk about the decapitation of the rights and the progressive movements of the 60s and things like this. And I was wondering what your take on the situation is, because I'm very sure it's going to be different than mine, and it'll be something enlightening for the rest of the people listening.
Well, what concerns me about it is that it is the police state aspect of it, and what's interesting. Even Al Sharpton made a comment about how it's odd that they announced the indictment in the evening, and it feels like to me that it's been set up in some ways as if they were expecting people to act out, and now we have an excuse to bring on this militarized police, and then have our First Amendment rights compromised. Yes, it's in many respects there's a black-white issue going on here in racism, but again it's beyond racism. I mean it could have been. It could have been anybody that was unfairly shot by the police. It just so happens that it's this particular situation. And again, sometimes I feel that these situations are orchestrated to create tension in America again, open up old wounds, and create what we have right now. One of the things that concerned me about CNN this morning is one of their broadcasters were also putting down bloggers and saying that a lot of stuff that was going on was actually created by the social media, that the social media was creating these types of issues, and I kind of feel like, okay, well, maybe this is a hit too with alternative media, and still wanting to make what comes out of mainstream television as the accurate what's actually really happening in the world. I just feel like we're headed towards that possible martial law and the ultimate agenda.
No, I hear you there, but I don't believe that this is the ignition point that's going to set something like that into motion. That's for sure, in my opinion. It's not going to happen off of this, but the potential does exist there, and of course, yeah, it is another sort of excuse to paint the general population as being in need of control. I don't know what you think about that, Randy, but I'm sure you kind of agree with me in a way.
I agree with you. I don't think any of us are all that far apart. I think we all see the implications of false elements going on in this, as well as what's going on in the background there in terms of instigators and people who are basically trying to ignite an already explosive situation. Blaming the social media is just hubris, because the social media is simply a mirror. The social media is all over the map on this. I looked at some Facebook posts today on Ferguson, and I'm embarrassed at how little people get it in terms of grasping elemental facts. Most of it's emotional reactionism. And this is exactly where the mainstream media wants you to go. We need to be able to look at this situation from a human perspective and realize that this is a condition, however the events have played out, that is a result of some very long-term planning and attempts to basically, again, I use the word because I guess it's on the top of my mind, debase the human condition in the inner city specifically, but across the spectrum in America.
it's usually the starting point. It's usually where they test this kind of stuff is in the inner cities because, after all,
it's a petri dish. It's a perfect testing ground, just like we were talking about earlier.
Well, exactly, and it's also excusable when they fail. You know what I mean? From a societal standpoint, it's almost perfectly fine when. When they use the subways to test their gases, you know what I'm saying? When they turn around and they utilize disinformation to control the masses so that you don't have a greater unrest in the city, these kinds of outcries, and it's okay to utilize the police state tactics in an already dangerous city, and et cetera, et cetera. But what people don't seem to realize is they try it there first, that's where they roll it out, but eventually it's everywhere. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm also beginning to wonder, like, how much of it is infiltrated. You know, I mean, like, is it really? I mean, because I've also heard that there was the original protesters that have been around for a very long time that were, peaceful in their demonstration, and now it's just kind of it's gone crazy. So, I mean, I'm always suspicious as to what's really legit, real, what's being created for the effect.
Look at the track record that we have in terms of, let's take a big example, Al-Qaeda, and go back and look at the historical data on Al-Qaeda. It goes much earlier than that, but look at Afghanistan and the radicalism of Islamists, the end of creating what was effectively Al-Qaeda. Look at the genesis of ISIS, ISIL, IS, whatever the hell they're calling it this. And you realize that radicalization and seeding elements into any movement is exactly how these guys work. And this is, at the end of the day, always a psyop.
Well, yeah, you broke up a bit, but I think we got the point there. And let's not forget that, absolutely, these things are always sort of prefabricated, ready to roll. And the use of social media, I find kind of a funny thing for the mainstream to point at, because, of course, this is one of their newest boogeymen, is the social media. Because, ISIS uses this to recruit people. They have a great Twitter feed, actually, apparently, and a really well-orchestrated, campaign out there for recruitment, don't they? They're utilizing Twitter and Facebook and God knows whatever else in order to, radicalize our people here, right? So this is part of the narrative. And I find it funny that you bring up Al Sharpton, because I say again, I'm struck every time I see the guy. He looks like a life-size bobblehead version of his former self. He really does, and he's so disturbing. And I'm not somebody who likes to pick on somebody's physical appearance, but when it becomes that sort of unreal, when it becomes that sort of disconnected from some level of normalcy, I'm struck by it. But and of course, is another one who is always the opportunist, the agent who seizes upon these types of situations, dating back to his emergence with the Tawana Brawley situation, and so on and so on. You can look up a phrase called the Crown Heights affair if you want to see what kind of behavior this gentleman participated in. Of course, the more recent revelations about him, being co-opted and participating with things with the FBI and on and on. When you talk about infiltration, Terry, the answer to me is that everything is infiltrated. And whether it be the new Black Panthers, because you notice that they were there, Randy, and you don't see them now. The Malik Shabazes of the world. They were there. They're no longer there, and I've got a pretty harsh viewpoint of the new Black Panther Party, personally. Something I don't want to digress into too much, but you see that, and you automatically start to feel the red flags creeping up in your peripheral vision. So,
well, the sadness is there is no visible, high-profile, positive leader for Black people in the inner city anymore, and it's certainly not the president, because the president's most inner city people do not view Barack Obama as their leader, and that's based on, personally, I've talked to Black people in the streets, and I know people that have said Barack Obama does not represent the face of Black America to most people, whether it's black people in the churches, in the inner cities, or black people in just everyday life. The black people right now do not have a leader that they can recognize, somebody that could be reasonable, that could rally them. I mean, that dream died with Martin Luther King and Memphis.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what do you think about regarding the sort of vacuum of leadership in the black community? Because I've always taken the attitude that I don't see why it is that they require that kind of leadership as it is. And and here I am seizing upon those ugly sort of phrases, they and them and everything else. But when it comes down to it, here we are participating in that subdivision, aren't we?
Well, look at it. Does any group really have a face of a leader right now? I mean, in the person who does choose to do it usually gets shot, right? I mean, anybody who really seems to, have a voice or is inspiring people for social change. I mean, we don't have anybody like that right now anywhere, whether it be for peace or for civil rights at the moment. And I agree with you. Barack Obama is. I mean, we have to people forget Barack is actually half white, and he's related to the other presidents. I mean, I think when we elected him, we thought that we were becoming more unified. Racially, as a face of America, but obviously we aren't, or maybe we are. But there's just it's like people just keep throwing salt on the wounds, and we have a justice system that isn't carrying out justice properly. And it's Rodney King over again, and so And obviously, it's not just people in Ferguson, Missouri, but people were ignited everywhere now. We've got Los Angeles, we've got Oakland, we have, New York is out there doing their thing. I mean, people, it's not just it's a big deal. I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. Right now.
Well, that's the thing that I'm starting to wonder is exactly how far is this all going to go. Are they going to utilize this to ignite further, further situations? Are we going to have, a sort of cascade effect regarding this? I mean, this is what I'm wondering is where it's going to go from here.
Well, we do have the domestic terrorism thing going on. Where we can, you can just be imprisoned for that. I mean, that's a little thing that's lurking behind us right now. And, there have been some things like shows or advertisements, where they would depict not just what the protesters that are now, but like let's say Occupy type protesters as being unruly, or that they'd have a Molotov cocktail, or that we're going to incite violence. I can say from my own personal experience of protesting or being Occupy, anytime anybody seemed to even act out in any way, everybody kind of did the ohm sound. And we reverse the energy of any type of negativity. I mean, that's the reality of what people want to do when they peacefully protest. But I don't think that the media is really giving too good of an image of what the protester is. I mean, even let's look at Bundy Ranch. That particular situation. And then the militia's involvement, and then you get into our Second Amendment rights and things like this, and like what is a militia and why is a militia important to America, and then you have the Walmart shooting, and the whole image that's being painted of anybody that goes against the grain of the government right now, and what their corruption is, or the injustices that we're facing. They take every opportunity to make us look bad, including social media, including bloggers. I mean, for me, the reason why the mainstream media is slamming us, because I consider it to be us, to be really honest with you. We're the alternative alternative media, or we are the social media bloggers. We are the ones who are doing real journalism with our cameras or our cell phones and documenting things that are not being documented in mainstream media. But the mainstream media will take every pot shot they can to make us look like we're obtrusive and we don't really have the accurate information. We're the ones who are circulating in opinions and inciting riot. And personally, I don't see it that way. Correct me if I'm wrong. But to me, the real truth is happening. We're the ones who are really talking about it and dissecting what's going on, and not just relying on the information that comes on to us when we turn on the television.
Well, I know I'm certainly not, and I know Randy isn't for sure. What do you think about what Terry was just saying, Randy?
Yeah, what she's identifying there is really just the decentralization of media. I mean, media is a modern concept. It's really a creation of the 20th century. Before that, you had disparate elements of communications, which is a completely separate issue than media, that operated not real well, orchestrated at that point in time. But I mean, even if you go back into the 1800s, if you look at newspapers, you find out that there's always been manipulation of journalism, as it's been called. I mean, people go to J school to be journalists for a reason, because they're taught a protocol that basically guarantees that they will not report certain things. I mean, it's all about dilution of the elements in order to make interesting stories. You can thing by writing fiction, frankly. But the decentralization of media as we know it, and going back to an earlier point, do groups need leaders? And I guess the answer is, if you look at Occupy didn't really have a central leader figure.
It was done on purpose, too, as well.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that was actually effective about it, was that in each city, it took on its own kind of dynamic, its own identity. I mean, it was a unified message, but it was not unified under a central figure articulating sound bites to the press. And I think this is what really pisses them off, when they can't nail down a sound bite, when they can't put a single face on the screen. They have a problem, because their journalism demands that they do that for impact.
Well, yeah, and it also doesn't give them an individual or a group of individuals to target necessarily to neutralize the message. And of course, I mean, I realize that, that Adbusters, created the genesis of this, and it was, not necessarily the organic great movement that it was portrayed as and all that, and I realize that. I'm not completely outside of the sphere of understanding regarding that, but the fact is that it was unique in that there wasn't a centralized leadership that could be neutralized so easily, and I think that's one of the things that did sort of frighten the establishment per se about it.
Well, also, Occupy was based on something called horizontalism, which was a type of movement that happened in Argentina. And the people just came together and sort of created an entire structure beneath the structure that was already there. They overtook warehouses and kind of even in some ways, had their own printing people going on, and it kind of like how Occupy was. I mean, everything had like a little department, and it worked like as an organization, as a collective. And it was kind of something where instead of having like one leader or dictator, it was more like a consensus of ideas coming together, and then a decision based on that, and then an action taken as a group, as opposed to just having one particular leader. It was kind of a social experiment in some ways, and it did throw people off. And still, I mean, people might say, well, was Occupy successful or not successful? It was something that couldn't really be determined or understood by the mainstream media, because they thought, oh, it's going to be like the Tea Party. Well, what do you want? What are your demands? And I even saw a cartoon, like, we don't know what they're saying, but it would have all the signs of exactly what we were saying. What we were basically saying is that there was a 1% of people who have 80% of the wealth in America, and that Wall Street had done us wrong, and of course, taken over. It's like the banks got bailed out, and we got sold out. That was really the main message behind everything, and that that there is something gravely wrong right now with how our economy is working and the way our government works. So. You could take, that's one level of protesting, but you can also take that to any type of revolution that's happening here. I mean, what I find interesting is, and then you look at things and you go, well, are the protests even orchestrated? Because if you go back through the history of time, there's suspect that some of these movements are actually created by the elite.
They were created by the elite. Go
Right.
back and look at the history of the 1960s movements, especially Columbia University in New York, the anti-war movement. All of that was basically radicalized and formalized as a means to basically, oddly enough, bolster the very war movement by discrediting legitimate protesters.
Right.
Yeah. So
what would we think would be the best possible outcome from this Ferguson travesty? I mean, what could we hope for at this point? Because it looks to me like what it will become is a festering sore in America's side. Whether it will blow up, whether it will fan out into other cities, and will continue to be a violent encounter situation, I don't think it has enough energy behind it to sustain, but I think right now we're at the flashpoint with this. And I don't think you're going to get another flashpoint until we have more action on what was handed down by the grand jury. So it looks to me like it's a series of flashpoints, but more than anything else, what would be a positive message to walk away from? One would be the radicalization of the police, in my opinion, and the other would be that the inner cities themselves have severe problems they need to address within their own communities.
No, absolutely. It's hard to say what the positive result could be from this, unless, and this is my contention, is that people need to unplug themselves from what, in my opinion, fueled this in the first place, which are two particular problems. One of them is the heightened militarization of the police forces. The fact that we have law enforcement officials now. We don't have peace officers. We have individuals that are out there conducting themselves in a particular way which is not conducive to a peaceful society. That's one thing that needs to be addressed. The other thing is to allow yourselves to be sort of influenced by the politics of subdivision. Whether it be by a cultural means, by religious means, by whatever means, these two things need to be addressed. I don't see that coming directly from this situation as it stands unless people become more aware of how these games are being played and what's actually happening. But, this is my viewpoint.
Well, now it can go up to a higher court, right? I mean, I think it needs to be there needs to be another trial over this.
Well, what another?
What's happened? I mean, the decision now. Obviously people are disagreeing with it at this point. Going to the federal court. I think it should go to the federal court.
Well, I don't see as though that's going to do much good either. I mean, look, this was a decision whether to indict him or not. And the reality is, which Randy brought up to start with when I first brought him on, was that we don't know what is reliably true here, even still. I allow for the possibility that this shooting could have occurred based on circumstances that make it almost sensible. And I know that sounds really strange coming out of my mouth because at the same time, I still don't believe that whatever the kid did, it rises to the level of being executed. No. I don't think that he could have possibly been convicted of anything that even the most staunch supporter of law and order and capital punishment would agree that he didn't do anything that rose to that level. So the initial incident being redressed again in the courts. I don't know how well that'll play out either. I mean, after all, we've seen these other divisive issues that were addressed in higher courts later, that were addressed by other means. The O.J. Simpson thing, he's found guilty of the wrongful death, et cetera, et cetera. And I only bring it up because, again, that was one of those racially charged things among the public regarding their sentimentality. But either way, I don't know if that's going to be a solution here because, again, we're still not addressing the behavior and the posture of the police forces.
Let me ask a critical question here.
Go ahead.
This would be a background question that a legitimate journalist would look into. If there has not been, why has there not been a civil complaint action taken against the police officer on behalf of Michael Brown's death, wrongful death, and civil action? Or are they planning to do a criminal court action? O.J. lost in criminal court, or O.J. won in criminal court, but lost in civil court where it really counted. So one of the things you have to look at here, because there are different standards by which different types of trials are waged. And the critical issue here would be getting evidence together that would hold water in a courtroom. The only thing we know right now is that apparently there's no belief that any of this holds water in a courtroom, which if the events that we've been given in the narrative are true, if Michael Brown was shot dead by this police officer, based on that narrative, then we would want to see the proof of that. And the best way to do that would be, even with an ongoing criminal investigation, to have also lodged a civil complaint with obviously immense amount of damages against the city, the police force, and the officer.
Well, right, and the standards of evidence are way different in that type of action as opposed to a criminal action. And here's the interesting point that I don't see anybody addressing, and that is that it could very well be a matter of not necessarily the support of whatever actions Wilson took here, but it could be that that the evidence does not exist in order to proceed with a criminal prosecution, which doesn't necessarily mean that he did the right thing here. See, that's what part of the problem is among this, in this discussion, in my opinion, to begin with, is that some people are taking it as sort of an endorsement of his behaviors regarding this case, and that's not necessarily the fact either. It could very coldly just be that the amount of evidence which is available and pursuable in a criminal court simply doesn't rise to the level required in order to continue on with the prosecution. And it could be just that, not necessarily, like, again, the endorsement of his actions, which is what a lot of people are taking this as, an endorsement of his actions that day.
Well, let's look at. I mean, let's even go back to the Zimmerman, case. Again, that guy walked away too as well, and we're looking at this with the police officer, and it still has a racial basis to it. I mean, twice we walk, two young unarmed black men no longer being alive anymore, shot. By some sort of authority. It doesn't look at it. And then you look at the O.J. trial and you say, okay, well, O.J. got off for murder because of apparently racial profiling by our own police force, which to me, his case was a lot weaker in proving, and yet he got off. And then we have this so obvious, and again, the police get off. So you begin to wonder, like, why are people, walking away from murder, whether they be, black or white, and yet the racial tension and the racial factor comes into whether or not a case wins or doesn't win.
Well, right. It's exactly what that case pointed to. I mean, for those that don't remember at that time, this is precisely what the thing was. I mean, it was like the sentimentality was based on the pre-programmed notion of what one thought about the case, and it was racially divisive. I mean, there was a very serious racial divide there regarding people's opinions on this. Irrespective of the evidence. And, regarding this Brown case, the point is here that we don't have the entire evidence laid out in front of us. Those that have already made a decision, and I personally have not made a decision in my own mind regarding what is actually the just cause here. I do say that there's no reason that this kid should have been killed, but then again, if there are circumstances that are evident in the situation here that caused that to have been, a possibility, I would very quickly say I was wrong about it. But the thing is that people have seized upon this stuff in a very prejudicial way. I mean, literally, in the most prejudicial way possible, regarding prejudging something before they actually know, even a hint of the facts. And listen, we've only got about 4 minutes left. And I wanted to kind of make sure I got in your last thoughts there on this situation before my obnoxious bumper kicks in, and remind everybody that you can listen to Randy Morgan's. He's the host of Off Planet Radio, and go ahead, Randy, if you want to point people at anything else you do.
Yeah, that's it. Off Planet Radio, offplanetradio.com, youtube.com/Off Planet Radio.
Right. Also, the show is on Fridays at tlbtowncrier.com. And that's always a fascinating show. And it goes all over the place, ladies and gentlemen, from the stuff that you would call supernatural all the way down to the language of the time, the legal system, geopolitics, in every form. I can't even begin to sort of pigeonhole your show in any way, shape, or form, Randy. So wanted to point that out. And Terry Joyce does the Freedom of Joyce radio show.
Yay.
Yeah. I'm actually on Fridays on Revolution Radio from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. and Saturday evenings from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then I replay
on Wednesday nights on the Liberty Beacon Network as well.
Yes.
Also, coincidentally, at tlbtowncrier.com, where you can also find a 1-hour version of the Ochelli Effect that I do all by myself.
Awesome.
I don't know if it's awesome, but I do rant and rave a bit, and God, you get a sort of a glimpse into my mind's eye for a moment, as frightening as that may or may not be. So, there it is. But your final thoughts on this? Let's start with Terry. What is your final word on this so far?
My final word is that I hope that it gets kicked up to the federal court, and that real justice is served, and that there's a lesson that America witnesses the militarization of our police, and that we preserve our freedom of speech and our right to peacefully assemble and protest like we do in America. That does not get infringed.
Well, at least it doesn't get infringed any further than it already has been, right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Randy, what would you say would be your final sort of synopsis here in 60 seconds or so?
Question all facts and understand that everything that's being presented to you is being done in a very scripted manner. Use your discernment and pray for peace.
Well, absolutely, because at the end of the day, I don't think there's anybody who's on this call or listening to my show that doesn't prefer peace above conflict, that would rather not see these types of events explode. I mean, look, fires in the streets of America, looting, unrest, people being violently reactive to the results of a court, the murder of an 18-year-old individual for whatever reason, and not necessarily murder. See, I got to catch myself. The death of an 18-year-old man that could have been avoided in one way or another, the police taking the stances that they have and abusing the public in one way or another. All of these things are worthy of discussion, but are definitely something that we don't wish for. And at the end of the day, don't we all just want to get along, as it were? Oh, that was really bad to bring that one up, I know, and it does harken back to Rodney King and all that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, regardless of what you thought of him, can't we just all get along? So I want to thank everybody for tuning in, calling in, and participating in the Ochelli Effect for tonight on UCY.TV radio. And, people, you never know what's coming next. But try and remember that we're all human beings. We're all on this planet for a very short time. And at the very least, one way or another, we should all figure out a way to get along a hell of a lot better than we do. Everybody have a good night. Thank you. And ribbit. Bye.
Bye.
At the age of 19 in 1962, she was
but I have the files. I read this stuff at the National Archives, and I read these other things. I said to myself, how can that be possible? The brain, pistols and final slab of choice. I don't know what that was. It doesn't really matter. Internet, professional wrestlers, and not Jesse Ventura style. It doesn't matter where the information comes from as long as it's real. It's hard to get real information because seriously, they don't want you to just read two sources whenever I try to